Thank you for joining us for this episode. Today we're joined by Dr. Kerry Gelb, who is who's the head of all docs, and he is going to be speaking with us about a new movie called Open Your Eyes that he produced on the OI show. Thanks again for joining us for this episode. Today we're joined by Dr. Kerry Gelb, and Dr. Gelb, it is a pleasure to have you on the show. Can you share with us a little bit about the genesis of how you came about with this movie and why you brought it about?
Sure. I mean, I would love to talk about the film. It's going to be released any moment now. We keep being threatened that it's going to be released. It got held up because of the pandemic, so they weren't releasing documentaries. So look for it on Apple TV and Hulu any day now.
Okay.
And the reason why we made the film is because, as optometrists, the public doesn't know what we do.
Right.
So it's a public awareness film, and it's something that's really bothered me as being president of all docs and our board for many years, is that here we have this great profession. And as optometrists, we have to be endocrinologists and neurologists and cardiologists and immunologists and we have to wear all these hats because, many diseases, not most diseases, may manifest in the eye, if it's not the first place it manifests. So often we're the first doctor to diagnose whether it's an autoimmune disease or, something common is hypertension or diabetes. But, there's a number of things that could affect the eye. I once had a patient with liver cancer, and they presented with this very unusual corneal basement membrane issue. And, the cornea person didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was. And, and unfortunately it turned out that it was, the person had liver cancer and passed away a number of years later. But, the eye is, as they say, is the window of the world, the window of the health. And, we had a great time making the film. It took about 3 years to make it. There was over $1 million into it. And, our goal is to make the public aware what an optometrist could do, because, we have these disruptors out there that are telling patients that, they could just look at their cell phone and get their eyes examined. And, the eye being so complicated, nothing could be more than that's very far from the truth.
Yeah.
Certainly, if somebody has a sty and we're middle of a pandemic, or they have a red eye, sure, a good optometrist could handle that. But it gets complex. As I said, we're going from the front of the eye all the way back to the optic nerve. So we're neurologists and immunologists, and we're everything. And we really have to know general medicine to really be a good optometrist. Plus, we have to be able to refract and give the proper contact lenses. And now with the new refracting techniques that we have with the equipment, if they're on their cell phone and they're getting a refraction on this, so-called refraction on their cell phone, or they come into an optometrist's office that's using a phoropter or one of these new digital phoropters, on a scale of 1 to 10, their glasses are going to be a 10 out of 10. But if they're doing it on the phone, maybe they're seeing a 7 out of 10, and that may make a big difference when they're driving at night on a dark road and a deer is running across the road, or a little kid, and you want to be able to see your best. So, but nobody's out there talking about what we do.
Right.
Nobody knows what we do. They're talking about what we don't do, and that we're ripping people off and just do it on the cell phone. And that's how 1-800 started. Basically saying, come to us. Your eye doctor's charging too much, and but they weren't paying attention to the great things that we do. And if we don't tell the public, who is? And that's
right.
Really that's my passion, really. And that's why we made the film. That's why I'm doing the podcast. I love doing the podcast with the optometrists, because these guys are so smart. I'm asking the questions, but they're so smart. It's just amazing. You interview Dr. Mark Dunbar, one of these guys, and, they're just so brilliant. And it's just so exciting to interview such smart people in our profession.
Yeah. Well, we have some amazing people that it's always nice to sit down with them. And I don't know about you, but the reason I started the podcast is because I learned so much from my colleagues at optometry meetings. And, during the pandemic, I wasn't getting to learn anymore because I wasn't sitting chatting with them. So it was like this opportunity to get to talk to all these people that I thought were brilliant and share those conversations, which I think, as you've done very eloquently in yours. So let's talk a little bit about the film. Like, you've got this message, and right, you carried that message really well about the hundreds of medical diseases that we can see in the eye. I've heard you share that message and talk about that, and we're more than just eye care providers, but we're primary providers and general practitioners in some ways, as you've pointed out. But why a film? Like, how did that start? How were you like, okay, we're going to make a movie, right? I mean, who says that, right? How did you get to that point where like, let's get a camera crew, we're going on the road?
I was talking to a friend of mine, uh, and he was friends with Bing Films, the Wayne Chesler, who's the producer of the writer and producer of the film. And he said, you have such a great story to, my friend Howie said, you have such a great story to tell. I'm going to hook you up with my friend Wayne, who's a movie maker. He does documentaries, and he did this documentary on cancer. It's called Cut, Poison, and Burn. And it's a very sad documentary, but it's a really good eye-opening documentary. And so I spoke to him, and we said, okay, let's do it. And as president of All Docs, I'm lucky I'm in the position where I could raise the money, and, all the companies pitched in, and, we know that there's a need out there. So we said, let's go for it. So
Yeah.
that's really how it happened.
And then, how did you continue your practice during this time? How did you, continue doing the other things that you're doing? Because this was like a 3-year undertaking, right?
Yeah. So basically, we would do it Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday because I see patients Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Once in a while, I would take a Wednesday off, but we leave. We leave Saturday night or Sunday morning and come back late Tuesday. And that's kind of how we did it.
Yeah. And where all did you travel to? I know you were all over the place.
So we were in Costa Rica, in Nicoya, in the Blue Zone area with the centenarians, and that was probably my favorite place. It really hits you in the heart. You see these people living in the jungle, and they're living to 100 years old, and they've never been to a doctor, but they don't suffer from the chronic diseases that we get in the West because everything they eat is real food. Everything has one ingredient. It's not full of chemicals like we eat. So they don't live there, from 70 on sick, from 60 on sick. We see patients, they come into the office, they're on 10 different medications, over the age of 60, many patients. No one's on any medication. They don't feel good. They eat something from their own garden. They have chickens running around, and, they're slaughtering their own chickens, and they're eating their own hogs, and growing their own vegetables, and it was really something, and became friends with Gaston, who was the ophthalmologist over there, and they basically don't have macular degeneration. They get cataracts, but they don't get macular degeneration. And we're always told to stay out of the sun. Dermatology tells us stay out of the sun, you're going to get skin cancer. These people are in the sun from the minute they get up in the morning to the sundown. I mean, they spend their whole life in the sun, and they live healthy, and so they and then they get the special water that they drink, which has like this magnesium and calcium in it. They've tested the water. So I mean, I really enjoyed Costa Rica and our time there and studying the centenarians. I love Budapest. Hungary is a great country. It's a lot of fun. It's a party city there, and this is a lot of fun. We were in the suburbs also of Hungary, and we interviewed a doctor who was specialized in myopia control, and they had some of the products like MySight before we had them. Probably, I don't know, maybe 5 years before we had it. It was FDA approved in the United States. So it was interesting to hear his perspective. I was in Canada, and I spoke to Jason Fung. He's a kidney specialist and nephrologist who's written a number of books. He's He's the fast, he kind of made fasting popular in the U.S. And interviewing Jason Fung was great, and his whole take on insulin resistance and diabetes was really interesting. So, and then of course we were out throughout the United States. So it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. Before I interviewed them, I really studied up. I had to know everything about them. It's funny, in one of my podcasts, I interviewed Robert Lustig, who's been on 60 Minutes, and he's very well known. He talks about dangers of fructose and sugar. And I said to Dr. Lustig, I really prepared for him. I watched so many of his YouTube videos and read all his stuff, and I was ready for him. And I said, before we went on camera, I said, Dr. Lustig, I want you to know, he always talks about his mother in his lectures, because he has this. He goes, my mother bought me this tie. That's one of his lines. It's kind of a funny line that he does. He kind of throws it in. And I said to him, Dr. Lustig, I know more about you than your mother. This was before we went on camera. He goes, oh, my mother's dead. I go, oh, all right. I'm not going to say that anymore. I'm not going to use that line anymore. But, there's some funny things that happen during podcasts, but it was a fantastic experience. And, hopefully once they release the movie, we'll really get a lot of awareness to what we do as optometrists.
Yeah. What was something that you learned during the process that you surprised you the most?
I think being out in the sun, as much as they are, we're told to stay out of the sun, and these people are out in the sun like nonstop, and they're healthy as could be. So, and then Jack Cruz, who's in the movie, his message is to get out in the sun, that people aren't in the sun enough, that we need to get, if you want to be healthy, just like any plant, you have to be in the sun. And he explains all the different wavelengths and why that's important. And he's in the film for a little bit. I interviewed him for like 3 hours. We didn't use a lot of what he's talked about, but we did use some of them. And I think that was something that really surprised me a lot, is the amount of disconnect between what we're told and what these really healthy people do.
Yeah. Well, many people that are going to be listening to this, the film will already be out by the time that it is. But moving into, it being released and so forth, most of our listeners are in the optometry space. Who should they recommend it to? Is it other healthcare providers? Is it for patients? Is it for people on the street? Like who should be watching this film? Like, who did you want it to go to?
We want it to go to the public, for public awareness, but it's really important that other healthcare providers see it as well, because they don't know what we do either, and it's funny because I'm very interested in functional medicine and preventive medicine, integrative medicine. And I get a lot of referrals from MDs that are into integrative medicine because they know that I'm interested in it. And you get some crazy I got to tell you, you get some crazy cases. But, for doctors that are looking for referrals from other physicians, that's a great way to get referrals, because they refer to each other, the people that speak that language.
So for many people, they might not know what you're talking about, like integrated medicine. Give us an example of what that is that we already do in optometry, but maybe we don't know that we're doing it.
Western medicine, we treat symptoms.
Yeah.
So we have a pill for every ill. You come in, you have a symptom, we treat symptoms. When functional medicine, we're looking at the cause of what's causing the disease. So for example, somebody comes in, they have uveitis, say. Obviously we're going to treat them conventionally, but we want to look at what the cause is. So maybe they need a whole battery of blood tests to see if we could find out why they're having it, rather than just treating the cause. So once we could treat the cause of the problem, it's much easier to treat the symptoms and help people get better. Right.
Recently on my podcast, I had an incredible clinician who's out of the Netherlands, Afe van der Wart, and he was talking about how with like myopia, we tend to be focusing right now on the solutions. And really, we need to be, focusing on the cause and in myopia itself and what it's doing, and understand that. Sunlight being a prime example, back to your illustration earlier of what's causing this to happen for children. And so, that's an example. We in dry eye, we oftentimes are like, well, here's your med, right? But like, why is that happening? And are there environmental, or are there things that you can do in your daily habits that could alter that? So those are great examples of ways that some optometrists may already be thinking about it, but maybe we're falling into the pill for the ill. I like that. And getting really into the root cause, I think, is a good reminder for us.
It's funny with patients. Somebody comes with dry eye. The drug companies that figure it out. When you're doing Xiidra or Restasis, they're treating inflammation. So we want to find out what's the cause of the inflammation. And, you don't have to look much further than the person's lifestyle and diet. And, they're eating fast food, and they're not exercising, they're not getting out in the sun. So if you could treat the inflammation systemically, you could do a lot to help their dry eye. And, I'll say to a patient, do you want me to give you a medication and that'll treat your symptoms? Or do you want me to teach you what the cause is, and do you want to treat the cause? And I've only had one patient in the last 10 years that said, just give me the drug. I don't care about the cause. Everybody wants to know. I just give me the drug. I only want to treat the symptom. Everybody wants to know the cause, and they want they want the opportunity to be able to treat the cause. Whether they're able to do it is another story.
Different story. Yeah.
At least they want the opportunity to be able to do it and give it a shot.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know you said it earlier, but where are people going to be able to find the film once it's launched?
So it's going to be on Apple TV. It's going to be on Hulu. It may be on some other platforms. Wayne Chesler and his company, Bink Films, they have to work with a kind of like a middleman, so to speak, to rep the film. So yeah. I know they have the film all over and they're repping it. So I'm not always in the loop with that. So, but they keep telling me it's coming. It's coming. I said we got 45,000 optometrists that are out there counting on you to get this out there and get this on TV. And it's also available for anybody watching your podcast. If they want to drop me an email, drop you an email, you get in touch with me. I'll be happy to send them a copy of the film, and they can watch it so they don't have to pay for it.
Yeah. Well, we'll leave that information in the show notes in case anybody wants to. And they didn't really teach you how to launch a movie in optometry school. So that's something that you're learning a whole new avenue of how to do this, which is just, I'm sure, fascinating for you.
One thing making the movie, the second thing is getting it out there. So yeah, that's just as hard, if not harder, than making it, especially in the middle of a pandemic.
Right. You wrapped up shooting in 2019, is that right?
And the 2019, yes.
Yeah. So amazing how it takes a little while to get going. Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. Tell us a little bit about you and your practice and All Docs and what you're involved with outside of this little movie project that you did in this amazing podcast.
So I'm the president of All Docs. All Docs is the Association of Lens Crafters, subleasing doctors. We have about 450 members, around 800 offices. We have a big meeting every year. We just had one in Key Biscayne. We always have very interesting, different types of speakers. We've had Robert Lustig speak. This year we had Dr. Chris Kenobi. We had Dale Bredesen, who I interviewed, who wrote The End of Alzheimer's. So he wrote a book, and it's all the research about how to, if you get Alzheimer's, you're starting to get it, how you could even reverse Alzheimer's, and the 36 things that you need to do to help reverse it. So his book is really very good, and my interview with him is very good. Anybody's interested in that disease, in preventing it, or if they have a family member who's starting to get it, there are things you could do, and they have good research behind it. As far as my practice goes, I believe that we should practice at the highest extent of our license. So in New Jersey, we have very good privileges. I have about 500 or 600 active glaucoma patients that I am following and I'm treating. Tons of diabetics and macular degeneration patients. I have all the top equipment, from OCT to a specular microscope to B scans. Right eye, we have all the top equipment, and we like to practice at the top of our license. And I practice with a number of really great doctors, and and together, we're able to see a lot of great patients, and we'll treat the cause of patients and not just the symptoms. And because of that, I get a lot of difficult cases that are sent my way. Sometimes those difficult cases turn out to be pretty easy, but we'll see some interesting cases in my practice.
Yeah. For my listeners, I'm asking this question. I have had opportunity to speak with and get to know several All Docs members, and yourself is an example of this. And I think when we came out of optometry school, particularly if we graduated 10 or 15 or 25 years ago, thinking about having a lens crafters type of practice meant that you were doing eye exams and giving people glasses, right? And I think you're speaking to the revolution that we've seen that really is happening, and I've seen it in lens crafters doctors particularly, but in other corporate types of settings where we're practicing at a different method than maybe is being perceived or even being touted in optometry schools. Would you say that is the case, and that there is a movement that's really been happening?
Well, I can speak for.
What did I tee you up for that one?
I can speak for my doctors, my All Docs doctors, and most of us are practicing at a very high level, and because we have to, and we like it. I mean, because we don't sell glasses. We sublease from lens crafters, I always tell the doctors when I hire them, we make our living by being smart. Mm-hmm. So you have to be smart, and you have to know really know stuff, because that's how we're going to make a difference in our community.
Yeah. And what would you say are the advantages of practicing in a setting like lens crafters over you moving out of lens crafters and opening a practice on your own? Obviously, you've been doing it a long time. What would you say are some of those advantages?
Well, we get a lot of marketing. Mm-hmm. We have a big marketing advantage. And, when it comes to certain third party, we have a big advantage with the third party. Lens crafters gives us a lot of support with those type of things. We don't have to sell glasses. Some people find that as a plus, other people find it as a minus. They don't want to be involved in selling glasses. So, I mean, there's a lot of positives, and lens crafters typically is supportive of the doctors. We've had our ups and downs with corporate, but in general, we're on the same team, and we're trying to do what's best for the patient. Most of the time, they don't get in the way of how we take care of our patients. I mean, when I started with lens crafters, it was a long time ago. They said, tell me the equipment you need, and indirects, and back then there was no OCTs, but whatever you needed, they said they would get it for me. I don't know, things are probably a little bit different now, but they're very pro doctor now, and there's advantages to working with a big corporation if you're on the same page.
Yeah,
they have resources that we couldn't possibly have.
Yeah. Well, I sure appreciate you pushing the envelope and continuing to help guide our profession, particularly in an area that may have historically been seen not as progressive, but certainly and I know that all docs and doctors who are practicing in corporate settings certainly elevate the profession. So tell our listeners where they can learn more about you. Obviously, they can see the movie on Apple and Hulu, as you had pointed out. But you've got this podcast. What are some ways that we can follow you and learn more about what you're doing?
So if you want to watch our podcast, it's Dr. Kerry Gelb, Open Your Eyes. We're on YouTube, Stitcher, iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all the podcast channels that you probably could think of. We have a podcast that comes out once a week, and we've released over 60 over the last, it comes out every Monday. We've released over 60. We've had great topics where we have great optometrists that we interview. We try to cover a wide range of topics, and also integrative medicine. So go back and watch some of those or listen to them on your favorite podcast channel. I think you'll be impressed, and I think you'll learn a lot.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Kerry. It was a pleasure to have you on the episodes today, and thank you for joining in for this episode. We look forward to having you and other great guests on the next episode. And everyone have a great day.
Thank you, Dr. Keating. You take care. Thank you.
Thanks again for joining us for this episode. We sure appreciate your support. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next episode.